Hi, I'm Connie Steele from Flywheel Associates and the Strategic Momentum Podcast.
And I'm Dan Yu from Fastbook Advisors. Welcome to this week's episode of the Business of Work Shorts.
And as always, we're here to provide you some actionable tips and advice to help you break through the common challenges that you face in your work and career life.
Because we've all been there and have had our own struggles with what to do and, more importantly, how to do it.
And we are quite passionate about sharing our words of wisdom and experiences because, let's face it, we've all been through some challenging times and we are still continuously learning.
Especially on the what, why, how, and when to address the barriers that have all gotten us all stuck or frustrated in our career paths. So we hope these short advice videos can help you gain traction and momentum. And so welcome to this week's episode, which is on personal brand development. So Connie, in today's environment, right, it's incredibly important to ensure that you've developed your own brand so that when you do go out into the world, right, and start networking, that it's fairly clear, right? And why else would it be important?
Well, I think in today's world, I think you have to look at yourself as a product too. You are a product on the web. Mm-hmm. Let's face it. Whenever you hear of someone's name, or maybe you just met an individual at a networking event or at work, whatever it might be, the default is to look you up and look
Absolutely.
You up on LinkedIn or just do a Google search on you to see who you are, what your interests are, right? So technically, it's like you're a product. Like the web is the Amazon, right? Essentially the marketplace to identify who you are. So it's so important to have a profile that clearly conveys who you are and what you're about, because in the absence of that, people will have a perception. So if you don't have much of a presence, they'll have a perception.
That's right.
If you have a pretty big presence, they're going to have a perception too. So it's better for you to shape it rather than somebody shaping it on your behalf.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that people have a lot of problems with, right, is, where do I begin, right? Where do I start? And so maybe they have a resume, right, that they've, just cobbled together everything they've done, right? Maybe some have put in some of their coolest accomplishments, but then how do you translate that to, an online presence or a LinkedIn, right? And so I think a lot of people just cut and paste. Right, and I think that's pretty natural, right? Because it's hard, right? But also, how do you start?
That is a challenge, right? And you know better than anyone, right? Because the business that you're in, which is finding talent and placing talent, right. You're looking for the narrative. The resume isn't as important because you could just get it all on LinkedIn. So Correct. It's really the whole profile and story around that person that you're looking for. And that can feel so complicated because you're trying to write for you and it's intimidating because you don't want to come across as sounding not strong enough or right. You're really self-conscious about it. And I've been through that too. Even though, I do marketing and brand development for a living, it's really hard when you have to do it for yourself. So I would say really treat this as you are trying to understand a product, which happens to be you. But one of the things you do, build that strategy. And that strategy can start first with understanding who your competition is.
So when you say competition, what does that mean?
Well, so if you are looking for a particular role, and I know we talked about one previously is somebody who is looking to do a transition, and they want to be more on the creative side, a creative manager. Well, why don't you look at other people who who have that title, who have that role, and see how they are describing themselves. And does that seem to fit you? That's one data point to help you start to understand what's the best way to shape really what you're about. But I should even take a step back because the first thing you need to identify is what do you want to be about? So
right.
Number one,
right.
You have to get clarity.
Right.
What is the product? What do you want to be about? Once you have clarity on that, and that may take you some time, you might have to go through some back and forth with people to figure out, well, what is it that I'm trying to shoot for? So specifically, let's say we're looking for a new opportunity. But once you know that, One piece is to start with the competition, right? And that's analysis that you can do, right? That can be
So
very
market
objective.
analysis.
Exactly. So market analysis includes the competition, people who have roles that are like you. Another one is look at the industry that you want to be in. And even you could go on the web and look up information about that kind of role. What do they do? What do you like what they do? What are those descriptors? And then ask people, this is one of the most important things I would say, is that ask people who know you, who know the great work that you've done. Ask them, what did they think about what your strengths are and the value that you add? And also how that could translate into the role that you want to pursue. Based on what they tell you, you've got a wealth of information right there that can help you craft that story. And, in those situations where you're maybe looking to pivot, it can help be that bridge between where you are and where you want to go, because they would have defined some of those skills and values that reflect you as a person that can bridge those two areas. So you've got the market, you've got the competition, and you ask others who know you to help understand you.
Right, that level set.
Exactly. But then what you have to do is triangulate all that information. So that's a
Right.
lot,
And
but
then
what you
putting
want
it to paper is different than getting all the information.
Exactly. But you know what? I think what a lot of people do is try to put pen to paper first. And they're writing it all out, and it becomes frustrating,
Right.
it becomes taxing, it becomes stressful because you're not really sure what to write. You're not really sure how to position yourself because you don't really have the data, the foundational data to help put you in the right direction. And you know what? You may not even get it right the first time, and that's okay. That's the way it works in, a corporate setting. You need to put a stake in the ground. You have to start with
Right.
something. But once you put something on paper based on what you've seen, based on the market analysis, the competitive analysis, and, your own sort of consumer analysis, you've got that foundation to put something down. And then you can validate that. Ask some friends like, hey, does this feel like me? Or, you know what? For somebody as a trusted advisor like you, as a recruiter, you'll be able to immediately tell whether or not that's a compelling story or not. Or
Right.
it could be a conversation starter to actually dig deeper to say, I like this, but tell me more about why you have this or this particular strength you have. And so maybe you need to play that up more. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think having a clear way to discuss and talk about your narrative, right?
Yes.
Rather than what you maybe not what you did on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's what I would say most resumes will discuss. Right? I did this job, and these are the types of things I manage, rather than talk about cool accomplishments. Because I think the cool accomplishments might actually be a better story, number one. And two, they might be easier to tell because there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And I think that's easier for people to remember as well.
Totally agree. So it isn't always about the features and the benefits. Again, let's think about a product.
That's right.
Think about your brand story. You're a brand.
Right.
At the end of the day, people are now brands too. And I think there's so many examples out there where you have individuals who are brands and you can identify with them. Everybody has a unique personality. Right. Everybody has a certain identity. Now what you have to do is digitize that and put it on the web and share it with everybody, which is a really scary thing to do. I've been through it myself. I've even had to do it. Recently for this event that I need to speak at, and I have to write a bio, and I've done so many iterations of this bio, and I have to even do a recording of it, and I'm
wow, really? Okay.
Yeah. So even though you have people where I do it, it doesn't mean that I don't have fear of it sounding not perfect, but I have to be okay with, well, what's good enough? It's about putting myself out there in an authentic way that really reflects who I am. And yes, there needs to be some polish, but you know what? The authenticity around you is also just as important.
Right. And I think that people should think about having a 30-second, a 60-second, and a 90-second pitch for as you judge your audience, right? So speak to the audience. If you only have 30 seconds, deliver the 30-second one and have it practiced. And then your branding, if it's in person, right, or maybe it's on a Zoom call, then it comes off as authentic, and it's not like you're reading a script, right? It's really just you making eye contact, right? And so it's not just a digital presence, but also that in-person presence.
Right, and just think of like a simple framework. It is, who are you? What do you do? And just why you're different. It's as simple as that. And and maybe why you're different isn't necessarily about the things that you do, but maybe the way that you do them. Which, remember that differentiation can be in your approach. So maybe you're just better than other people at building relationships or connecting the dots in a certain way to be effective in managing a project because work is soft skills and hard skills. And as we've discussed before, soft skills are almost more important in a lot of instances as you move up than the hard skills.
Right. And it's not just about your career, but it's how you bring yourself to a situation. How do you carry yourself, right? I mean, everybody's multifaceted, right? You can't just be, an automaton, right? It's personal, and that's what we call personal branding, right? So
absolutely.
All right, so let's recap. Why is it important, right?
Well, one, it's important because today you are a product on the web. And so if you're a product on the web, you want to be sure that you're shaping what your narrative needs to be so it really reflects you.
Great. And how do we do it? We got to do this self-analysis, but also a market analysis, right?
Absolutely. Well, let's remember, start with what is it that you want to be known for?
That's right.
Then do the market analysis and have that self-analysis in addition to that competitive analysis. And once you look at that data, because it is data, right? And it makes it easier when you have data to be objective and to be able to shape your story. Then it's about writing it down and iterating, and it's okay. You're going to iterate on it again and again and again because you're evolving too.
Right. It should be a living document because you're a living person. Right?
Absolutely.
And then, all right. So now that we've figured out the product, right? The other P for this exercise, the placement, right? So sharing it.
Right. You got the promotion, right? So LinkedIn.
Right.
Put it out there on LinkedIn, right? Because it's going to be the blend of the resume, all those features and benefits, but you have the opportunity to create that personal narrative around it, to set it up and say, what are you really about? So, Dan, you've got a great article about that too.
Right.
It's optimizing it.
It's really about optimizing your LinkedIn profile to attack the target markets, right? So if you're really into that job search mode, it's attacking the recruiter as a target market. It's attacking the hiring manager as a target market. And how do you optimize your LinkedIn profile to be more effective? That's really it.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for tuning in today.
And remember to manage your career as a business.
Because in today's world, you have to understand the business of work.